Are you looking for ideas to use your 12 by 12 pattern paper without making any scraps? Hi, I'm Jess from jesscrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So let's get making. Today I have a template that makes 8 slimline cards with one piece of 12 by 12 paper without making any pattern paper scraps. I'm going to be working with the Simple Stories Little Princess collection. I've had it for a while and I have some other videos where I have shared this collection, so I'll link those below. I've picked out this diagonal striped paper because today's sketch works well with something that doesn't have a clear top and bottom, i.e. is not a directional pattern paper, and since stripes tend to look good in multiple directions, I went with the stripes. The rest of the collection has some directional and non-directional pattern papers. Also, this particular sketch, because some of the pieces are kind of small, this is only like a 3 by 2 inch piece, which isn't terribly small, but some of the larger patterns I don't think will look as good. So that's kind of why I picked the particular paper that I picked, or maybe I liked a paper but what was on the back I wanted to keep. The paper that I picked, the striped paper, actually does have all these little squares on the back, and it seems like kind of a shame to waste them, but honestly, I'm not sure I could see myself using all of them. I see myself using the little ones with the princesses in them, or some of the sentiments, but then a lot of the other ones, I'm not, like, they maybe don't make a great sentiment, or trying to use all of them because there's so many of them. It just, I don't think it's gonna work out for me. So I'm gonna sacrifice the back of this paper. You could, because these actually are 2-inch squares, I believe I have a template for 6 by 6 paper that does use these 2-inch squares. So if you would want to use the 2-inch squares, I'll share that template down below as an idea for what to do if you have papers like this. But I'm gonna cut it, so sorry if that upsets anybody that I'm wasting that side. You gotta start by making it the actual 12 by 12 by cutting off that little piece along the bottom that tells you the name and collection and all that. Then we have our genuine 12 by 12 piece here. I need all of these stripes, so I'm going to cut off the 4 inches on the bottom that are dedicated towards these little small rectangles. And I'll bring it to 8 inches. And this will be the 8 by 12 piece that turns into all these strips that'll be 1.5 inches. And then this will turn into the 3 by 2s, so I can just continuously measure 1/2 an inch from the edge here, so to 10.5, 9, 7.5, 6. So I'm just subtracting 1.5 inches from the previous number. If the math on that kind of thing is not for you, you can always pull your paper every time to the 1.5 inch, but I find, especially with 12 by 12 paper, when that heaviness of the rest of the longer piece of paper hangs off the edge of my guillotine trimmer, it has a tendency to make it less straight. So just something to keep in mind, something you may have noticed. And if you don't have a guillotine trimmer, like if your trimmer is a little bit more flat, then that probably won't be as much of an issue. But that's why I do it the way that I do it. And then I'll cut these into 3 by 2 inch pieces. So we'll start by cutting it into 2 by 12. Then I'll have 2 by 12s. And then again, I'm just gonna take 3 inches off of each of these. So 9, 6, and 3. I much prefer when I'm not dealing with like halves and 1/4 of an inches. It's much faster to do the math with whole numbers for sure. And then I'm gonna need to cut some cardstock mats for these. So I will decide which color based on my embellishments. I don't always do it this way. Sometimes I just pick whatever color I like, or whatever color I have scraps of, or a color that I haven't used a lot of. Like, I think it's yellow is one of the colors that like I just tend to have a bunch of but don't use, although I've used it a lot lately. So anyway, I just picked up these little princesses from Creative Fabrica. And I liked them because this particular set of graphics that I bought and then was able to print out with my color printer had a lot of diversity in it. But what I will note is that the Simple Stories Little Princess collection has a lot of diversity in it. So the Little Princess collection, I got the Princess Bits and Pieces. I don't know if this is still available, but if you buy the Little Bits and Pieces, you get 24 little princesses, which is awesome. And as you can see, there's a lot of diversity within them. There's some that kind of look reminiscent of particular Disney princesses, and others that are just, you know, like that little girl has glasses. We have girls that are Black, Asian, yeah, just, you know, in different colors of hair and skin and all that jazz. So anyway, you could totally use them. I like the diversity in this collection, but, you know, of course you get just the 24, and once they kind of sell out or the collection gets phased out, you can't buy them. Whereas I thought if I get these princesses, these I can have forever and print endlessly. And when I've used up my 24, because I'm going to use 8 today just for this one piece of paper, I'll quickly go through my 24. So I printed these, and also because my little princesses are going to go here on this 2x3 piece of paper, I wanted something that was a little bit more appropriate in scale. Now, I kind of didn't do a great job because some of these are almost as big as the princesses in the collection, and then some I did print smaller because you kind of are just using those rulers on the side as an estimate. If you don't know how to print your images from Creative Fabrica, I have a whole tutorial about that. So if you're interested in the idea of this, but you don't know how to do it, that tutorial will be linked in the video description. I settled on some blue cardstock. It matches well with my paper. It matches well with the images I'm going to use. The blue, they match well. The yellow pops off well, so complementary color there. This is an 8.5 pieces of paper, and for my long strips here, I'm going to need 8.25 by 1 3/4. So I'll want to cut it this way and try to get as much as I can out of that. 1 3/4 doubled is 3.5. So I will then cut it to 3.5 and then in half again, and I'll make 8 of those. If you're going to cut all your mats at one time, I would suggest cutting it to 8.25 first, because I got 6 strips, and then this is my only scrap. I was concerned that my scrap might then be missing a 1/4 inch, and that could be frustrating later on, but since the scrap is so small, I don't really care about it at all. But I will I'll turn this probably into like fake foam tape, but yeah, cut it to 8.25, because now I'm gonna have to go back and cut each of these individually, so save yourself the stress. Then I'll take a second piece of the same color cardstock, and I'll need 2 of these, so I don't want to cut that one to the 8.25, since I'll only be using 3.5 of it. But then the rest of it I'll cut for my templates for 3.25 by 2. So I have all of my pieces, and I'm keeping them inside this plastic folder because I'm having one of those times when my crafting is just interrupted, and so it's good to be able to put all my pieces away and not lose them on the mess that is often my crafting desk. So what I can do is add my adhesive to a bunch of the strips all at once, to a whole bunch of these, and I can just kind of really quickly mass produce these 8 cards because I have all the little steps that I need. But I'll just show you assembling one to save us all quite a bit of time. I don't usually record without doing my nails first, so I hope you don't mind. But even after, I don't know, I think that putting on the nail stickers and wraps and things that I've been doing has been helping me, because I used to have a hard time keeping my nails long and strong, and I think that I'm pretty happy with how they're holding up. I don't find that like those nail wraps or anything damage my nails too much if you use a oil to help you remove them, so that it kind of gets in there and gets that adhesive off a little bit. Anyway, sorry, random tangent, but I know other crafters who enjoy doing their nails, so I'm going to place this along the edge here. This is Accent Opaque 120 pound, which is a really thick cardstock. almost a little too thick for card bases. Even after I score it and burnish it multiple times, it doesn't really lay flat, which is kind of good when you're displaying the card. It like really holds up. When you're adding this piece to the sketch, I wouldn't bother, but if you were a little bit like concerned about that piece, you could take a small strip and like prop it up, but I really don't think it's necessary. And you can decide how you like the stripes. Like here, they kind of almost like match up. And so it might be fun to place them that way, but it's gonna do all different kinds of things depending on which paper you choose, of course. So I think that looks pretty cool. And then I am ready to add my sentiment. I have picked out a banner die cut. This is from MFT, I believe, and I've also picked an MFT, My Favorite Things, stamp set. This says Hello Beautiful. I need to stamp some of them all the way to the left here so that when I add the little girl, because she is facing this way, I want her to be looking at the sentiment. I think it's a little bit distracting if she's basically looking off the card. And then the other little girls, this one's a little bit tricky because she's kind of looking that way, but then her body's sort of facing this way. So I think she could kind of go either way. And the same here, like her body's turned this way, but her head's turned that way. So I think those two are fine, but particularly because this one, where her body and eyes are facing, I really want to make sure that I am stamping with that in consideration. So, can I get away with just stamping them all the same? I think so. I think the other two little girls is not as big of a deal, but it's those little design moments that actually can make a big difference to how your card looks, because it's just what makes things like look visually natural to us. Ready to stamp my sentiment. When I have banners like this, I really like using this self-made template. So I die cut my favorite banners out of a nice thick piece of cardstock. This is a good use for that really thick 120-pound stuff. And then this is painter's tape, and as you can see, that's the sticky side. So it's going to hold my die cut in place, and then I can place it down one time and make sure that they're all stamped well. It's not a huge deal. Like, honestly, I find that if I use a stamp block, I can usually do a pretty good job stamping centered, or where I want to go. But when you're gonna stamp, like in this instance, I'm gonna stamp 8 of them, it can be a little bit, I don't know, it's not quite, I hesitate to say that it's a time saver, but if you do mess one up, it certainly feels great to have it in the MISTI. And a couple people have mentioned that that was a helpful tip. They hadn't thought of making their own templates. So I'm gonna use some dark blue ink, just because I want to pull in more blue colors, and I think it's a little bit more interesting than always using black for your sentiments. But of course, at the same time, black is super versatile and it goes with everything. So if you haven't yet invested in colored ink, black sentiments usually work well. I'll finish up this one card for you, and then I'll head over to jesscrafts.com to see a picture of all 8 completed cards and to pick up your template so you can turn one piece of 12 by 12 paper into 8 adorable slimline cards. I'd also love to see your creations over at the Let's Get Making with Jess Crafts Facebook group. So there'll be a link to that in the video description. If you found this video inspiring, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.